I'm a private detective. One day, I received a case. A client suspected his wife was cheating on him and wanted me to find out who the affair partner was. But when I saw the photo of his wife, I froze. Isn't this my wife of 3 years? I held the photo in my hand, my fingers trembling slightly. What's wrong? Is something the matter? Marcus, sitting across from me, noticed the change in my expression and asked, his voice tinged with confusion. I shook my head, pushing down the storm of emotions threatening to rise within me. I had met Anna through work. She had just started her job and made a small mistake. Like a frightened little rabbit, she had tugged at my sleeve to apologize, tears glistening in her eyes. I felt a pang of sympathy and ended up fixing the issue for her. From there, we spent more time together, and gradually, we grew closer. After we officially confirmed our relationship, Anna became even more considerate and gentle with me. I worked long hours, often forgetting to eat, but she'd prepare me nutritious bento boxes every day, always finding new ways to make them special. It was only natural that we eventually got married. After our wedding, she quit her job and became a full-time homemaker. Our life was simple, but warm and happy. But now, Marcus was telling me Anna was his wife and, even crazier, he suspected she was cheating on him. Had I upset someone? Was this some kind of cruel joke aimed at me? I kept my calm, asking cautiously, why do you think your wife's cheating? Marcus lit a cigarette, letting out a cloud of smoke before sharing his findings. Due to work, Marcus had been based in Los Angeles, living apart from Anna. Recently, his parents had been pressuring him to have a child, so he took a week off during Anna's ovulation period and flew to San Francisco, hoping to conceive. It was during that week that he noticed something off. He found that every night, around 8 or 9 o'clock, Anna would take her phone into the bathroom. One evening, curious, he pressed his ear to the bathroom door. Aside from the sound of running water, he could hear Anna speaking, her voice soft and fragmented. Men are always sensitive to signs of infidelity. Once Marcus sensed something was wrong, he confronted Anna immediately. But, of course, Anna denied everything, even accusing him of not trusting her and tarnishing her character. After their argument, Anna even left home, staying at her parents' for several days. It wasn't until Marcus sent her some money that she finally agreed to return. But by then, the seed of suspicion had been planted in Marcus's mind. So, before leaving for his trip, he came to me, hoping I could investigate Anna and confirm whether his suspicions were true. I couldn't help but ask, where is your wife's parents' home? Marcus seemed surprised by the question, but answered truthfully. When I heard his answer, I was shocked. Wasn't that my family's place? I couldn't understand it, but I was utterly stunned. How come my wife and I's wedding house became my wife's parents' home? When I first saw the photo of Anna, I thought it was absurd. How could one person possibly be living two separate lives? But now, everything clicked into place. No wonder Anna's best friend had suddenly broken up last week. She'd said she needed to go on a trip to clear her mind. It wasn't just a trip for her friend's sake. Anna had been managing a whole other life. Before I could process it further, Marcus lit another cigarette and sighed deeply. Actually, if my wife really is cheating, I suppose I have some responsibility too. I mean, I've been working in Los Angeles, and she's been living alone in San Francisco. She must have been lonely. I stared at him, feeling like I was looking at an alien. If she is cheating, you'd still forgive her? Marcus crumpled the cigarette in his hand, his lips pressed tight as he hesitated. After a long pause, he muttered, if she's willing to cut ties with that guy, I think I'd forgive her. I could barely wrap my head around it. For a moment, I didn't know whether to pity him or feel sorry for myself. Ugh, Marcus sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. You don't get it. You don't know how much I've spent on her. If we get divorced, I'll have nothing left. That's called sunk cost, I said, my stomach tightening. He looked at me in surprise, then nodded slowly. Let me explain. 2 years ago, Anna and I had a whirlwind marriage. She's 7 years younger than me, gorgeous, and sweet-tempered. The only problem was her family. Her father works on a farm, and her mother's health is poor. She spends thousands a month on medication just to survive. On top of that, she has a useless younger brother who dropped out of high school and spends all his time at home playing video games. I work in investment banking. My salary's pretty good, and I've saved up some money. Anna was everything I wanted in a wife, so I overlooked her family's situation. But I didn't realize that after we got married, all the weight of her family's problems would fall on me. Marcus pinched the bridge of his nose, his face heavy with frustration. I'll be honest with you, I even paid the down payment on the house her parents live in now. If we get divorced, all that money goes down the drain. The more I listened, the more uneasy I became. The first half of his story sounded eerily familiar to my own situation, but when he mentioned paying the down payment for a house, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That house belongs to me. I had paid the full price for it as our wedding home. What was going on? Marcus checked his watch. It's getting late. I have to head to the airport. George, this is on you now. Let me know if you find anything. With that, he grabbed his suitcase and left. I collapsed into my chair, feeling like the ground had just been pulled out from under me. I didn't even know how to describe what I was feeling: anger, disappointment, confusion, helplessness. I sat in the cafe for another half hour, trying to calm myself down. Finally, I returned home, pretending everything was fine. It wasn't that I wanted to act like nothing had happened, but after years of experience, my gut told me that Anna's infidelity was just the tip of the iceberg. To uncover the truth, I knew I had to hold off for now. When I got home, the dinner table was already set with a variety of dishes, each one more enticing than the last, full of vibrant colors and aromas. Before today, I would have considered myself the luckiest man in the world to have a wife like Anna, loving, capable, and thoughtful. But now, I couldn't help but feel like the biggest fool. My wife was cheating on me, and I had no idea. Even Marcus, of all people, had picked up on it. And yet, here I was, a private detective, too blind to see the truth. George, you must be tired from work. Anna came rushing towards me, her face breaking into a sweet smile. I made your favorite dishes today. Go wash up and come eat. I fought back the nausea rising in my throat, not daring to pull away from her. I tried to keep my voice steady. I already ate outside. Anna playfully pouted, tapping my cheek. George, you're so mean. You didn't tell me in advance that I spent so much time cooking. I let out a forced laugh. I just got caught up with work and forgot, that's all. I don't care, she said, her voice full of mock annoyance. You have to make it up to me. She wrapped her arms around mine, rubbing against me. Her fingers traced lightly from my forearm up to my chest, in slow, suggestive circles. Her eyes sparkled with an unmistakable hint of seduction. If this had been any other time, I would have known exactly what to do, pulling her into the bedroom without a second thought. But now, all I could think about was how she probably did the exact same thing with another man. The thought made my stomach churn, the food I'd eaten earlier threatening to rise up. I quickly covered my mouth, bolting for the bathroom, and proceeded to throw up into the toilet. When I came out, Anna was immediately on her feet, reaching out to steady me. George, are you okay? Why are you suddenly throwing up? Is it your stomach again? I waved her off, carefully avoiding her touch. I'm fine. I think I just ate something bad. I'll take some medicine and be right back, Anna, you. Before I could finish, her phone rang. When she saw me looking at her, she hurriedly hung up, pouting. I don't know what's going on, but I've been getting so many strange calls lately. Just as she ended the call, her phone buzzed again with a reminder alert. I squinted, pretending not to care, and said, Anna, I really can't eat right now. You go ahead and clean up. I'll just find some medicine in the bedroom. She seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, and with a final glance at her phone, she hurried off to the kitchen. I couldn't help but wonder if that call was from another man. That night, we lay in bed watching a movie. Anna's head rested lightly on my shoulder as she softly called my name. George? What's wrong? I asked, struggling to suppress the bitterness rising in my throat. She hesitated for a good 30 seconds before speaking. George, can you lend me $100,000? So, it wasn't my body that she wanted. What's going on? Is there something wrong with your parents' side of the family again? I asked, pretending not to care. Anna bit her lip. It's my brother, Henry. You know how he's been just lounging around at home, not doing anything. I thought I'd help him find something to do. I didn't quite understand. I'd never heard of anyone having to spend $100,000 just to find a job. Henry wants to drive for a rideshare service. It's rare for him to want to work, so as his sister, I have to support him, Anna said, pouting as she grabbed my hand. George, just lend him the $100,000, okay? Once he starts making money, he'll pay you back. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Over the years, I had already lent Anna's family at least $600,000 to $800,000, and not a single dime had been repaid. I'd helped her out before, out of consideration for her, but now she wanted me to keep being the sucker. It was a pipe dream. I put on an expression of reluctance, playing along. Anna, I don't have that much money on hand right now. Anna looked at me in disbelief. How could you not have $100,000? You know, I've been putting my money into some funds recently, and they've been doing well. I made the decision to invest heavily, and if I sold now, I'd lose money. Anna's face immediately darkened, her voice cooling noticeably. Well, I'll figure it out myself then. I'm tired, so I'm going to sleep. As she turned and walked away, it hit me, every time Anna had shown affection in the past, it had always been with an agenda. Looking at her back, it suddenly dawned on me that every time Anna showed her kindness, she had a purpose, either asking for money or asking me to do something for her. If something doesn't meet her expectations, she will become very cold. Why hadn't I noticed this before? I spent the whole night awake, replaying every moment from when Anna and I first met until now. It wasn't out of nostalgia but because I wanted to see if I had missed any signs. And one question I had been overlooking suddenly surfaced. How had Anna managed to get 2 marriage certificates with 2 different men? I was sure that Anna and I had gotten our marriage certificate at the courthouse, so the issue must lie with Marcus's certificate. Almost as soon as the sun rose, I went out and found a cafe to make a call to Marcus, asking him when he and Anna had gotten their marriage certificate. To my surprise, Marcus hesitated for quite a while before admitting that they hadn't actually gotten one yet. But we've already had the wedding, he added. Wait, you've been married for 2 years, and still haven't gotten the certificate? I couldn't help but ask, curiosity getting the best of me. We were both so busy with work. After the wedding, we had to go straight back to work the next day. We just never had time to get the certificate, Marcus sighed. I see now. No wonder Anna had been able to pull this off. Though the truth was mostly clear by now, I didn't confront Marcus directly. He seemed like the kind of guy who might change his mind if Anna whispered in his ear, so I decided not to risk it. Once I had the information I needed, I hung up. I stared at the notes I had taken, analyzing them word by word. Anna had been cheating on me. What was her real goal behind this marriage? It was obvious, money. My wealth was finite, and I could see now that her scheme was about financial gain. It was clear Anna's family was involved, if not fully complicit. In fact, they were likely all in on it together. My eyes lingered on the name Henry. It was clear now, Henry was the one benefiting from this entire scheme. To be honest, I never cared much about Anna's family, so I never took the initiative to look into their situation. All I knew was that they lived in a small rural area, with modest means. But they somehow ended up with a lazy, good-for-nothing son. Henry didn't even finish high school. He got expelled for beating up a classmate. Once he was out of school, he just let himself go. Every day, he did nothing but mooch off others, living off his parents' hard work. I'd tried finding him a job before, but either the pay wasn't high enough or the work was too hard. Typical of someone with big ideas but no follow-through. Over time, I gave up on him. I even started limiting the spending on the card I gave Anna, just in case she caved and indulged Henry like she always did. After thinking for a while, I pulled out my phone and checked Henry's social media accounts. I scrolled through his profile, and sure enough, it was full of pictures of food, drinks, and random fun. Nothing with a location tag, but there was one image that caught my eye. It was a picture of a spread of dishes. On the bottom right corner, the restaurant's ordering QR code was visible. I scanned it and found out it was from a fancy local restaurant. I hadn't even dared to eat there, but of course, Henry had beaten me to it. Just then, Anna's call came in. George, I'm going back to my parents' place tonight. I'll be back in about 3 days. I furrowed my brows. Why are you going to your parents' house? Henry wants to buy a car, so I'm going to give him some advice. Didn't you say he still needed $100,000? How did he come up with that overnight? I had a sinking feeling that Marcus had something to do with it. My parents borrowed it from relatives. Anyway, I've got to go. I'll talk to you later. And with that, Anna hung up. From what Anna said, Henry was at her parents' house. But based on Henry's social media posts and Marcus's words, it seemed like he was still in our city. What I couldn't figure out was why Anna was trying to hide the truth about Henry's whereabouts. I didn't waste much time brooding over the issue. Instead of overthinking, I decided to find the answers directly. Tracking was one of my specialties, and within no time, I had traced Anna's whereabouts. She was indeed at a car dealership, but not the one near her parents' house. She was at one in our city. I grabbed my usual gear, disguised myself as a middle-aged man, and followed Anna into the showroom. Henry was already there. When he saw Anna, his eyes lit up, and he excitedly yelled, "Anna, check out this car. Isn't it cool?" I glanced at the car. The price of $500,000 would probably use up all of their family's assets. Yet Anna didn't seem uncomfortable. Instead, she walked over to Henry and adjusted his collar, scolding him lightly, "How are you still acting like a kid? You can't even put on your clothes properly before you head out." Henry scratched his messy hair, flashing a smile. Standing at 6 feet, he awkwardly bent down to squeeze himself against Anna, who was only 5 feet tall, like a piece of wire twisted into a coil. "I'll always be your little brother," he said, dragging out the words in a way that felt too forced, too ignorant. I couldn't help but feel disgusted. Even the salesman standing next to them wore a constipated expression, trying to hide his confusion. The worst part? Anna seemed to be enjoying it. She pinched Henry's cheek affectionately and asked, "Are you sure you want this car?" I raised an eyebrow. Where was Anna getting all this money? I could believe she might scrape together $100,000, but $500,000? Where did she get it? Before I came, I'd already asked Marcus, and he confirmed he hadn't given Anna any money. But seeing Anna act like buying a car was as casual as buying groceries, it made me wonder if she was some millionaire's wife. I was at a loss for answers, so I stayed quiet and continued watching. Since Henry's desired color had to be specially ordered, Anna put down a deposit and then left the dealership, hand in hand with Henry. The salesman watched them go, clicking his tongue in disbelief. That guy is really lucky. I don't know where he found such a young, beautiful wife, bought a $500,000 car without hesitation. His words made me pause, and suddenly, everything clicked. That strange feeling I'd been having now made sense. The way Anna and Henry interacted, it wasn't like siblings. It was more like. I followed them all the way to the elevator in their apartment complex. The elevator stopped at the 11th floor. About 5 minutes later, I took the elevator up myself. From the shoes by the door, I quickly figured out that they'd entered room 1102. I sent the address to a friend who worked in real estate. Within 3 minutes, I had the owner's name, Pete. A strange name. An absurd and bold thought crossed my mind. Could this be Anna's new husband? With a new lead, I quickly dove into my investigation, and sure enough, my guess was close. Pete was Anna's new fiance. From my findings, they'd met 3 months ago. Pete was a programmer at a big company, high salary, but plain-looking and a typical introvert. He had been single until he met Anna. Anna, with her angelic face and devilish body, and her undivided attention toward Pete, what man could resist that? Less than a week later, they were officially dating, and now they were already talking about marriage. I suspected that Henry's car funds came from Pete. But there was still one thing that bothered me: how had Anna managed to so perfectly select us, to fit into each of our ideal types? How had she found her way into our lives so precisely? 3 days later, Pete and Anna were set to host their engagement party. After a moment of thought, I sent the news to Marcus. The next second, his call came in. "George, did I misunderstand, or did you mess up?" Marcus's voice was loud, full of disbelief. "You're telling me my wife has a new husband?" I paused for a moment. "Yes, you heard me right. I didn't make a mistake." I casually sent him the picture of Anna trying on her wedding dress. Marcus was silent for a long time. Just when I wondered if he had hung up, he spoke again. His voice was hoarse, tinged with a barely contained sob. "Is this the guy she was cheating with?" I didn't answer his question directly. Instead, I said, "From my investigation, Anna's family is most likely scamming to get married. I suggest you prepare the transaction details, you might need them later." Marcus was stunned, speechless. But after a moment, he regained his composure. He was in his 30s after all. We set a time to meet and agreed to show up at the engagement party, ready to catch Anna off guard. The day of the engagement party arrived. I took Marcus to the venue. The hotel's LED screen flashed the message, "Congratulations to Mr. Pete and Ms. Anna on their engagement." Marcus gritted his teeth and glared at the screen, his eyes practically spitting fire. I tugged at his sleeve. "Calm down, Marcus. Impulsiveness is the devil, don't forget our plan." He took a deep breath, paused for a moment, then nodded, his eyes steely. "Let's go." We slipped into the crowd and smoothly snuck into the banquet hall, finding a spot in a quiet corner. The guest list was made up of close family and friends. I leaned in close to Marcus and whispered, "Do you recognize any of these people?" Marcus squinted, scanning the crowd. After a long pause, he shook his head. Aside from his parents and Henry, I don't recognize a single one. I silently nodded. These so-called friends and family were probably just hired actors. This was a well-orchestrated, purposeful marriage scam. Marcus caught on too, his voice low and tense. Scamming my money is one thing, but scamming my feelings? I clenched my jaw and muttered, scamming my feelings is one thing, but scamming my money? Marcus turned to me, surprised. George, what do you mean by that? I licked my lips and revealed my relationship with Anna. Marcus froze for a moment, disbelief on his face. He pointed at himself. It turns out that I am also Anna's cheating partner. Then he pointed at me. You are her husband. Feeling the odd looks directed at us, I quickly squeezed Marcus's hand and whispered, keep it down. We're both victims here. True, Marcus said, nodding thoughtfully. But honestly, having you behind me makes me feel a lot better. I rolled my eyes and shifted my attention back to the stage. Anna was walking up. She was wearing a white mermaid-style wedding dress, the fitted design accentuating her curves and the pure white color enhancing her innocent, almost angelic vibe. Who could have guessed that beneath such a beautiful exterior, there was such a dirty, disgusting soul? Pete's a lucky guy, huh? He got such a beautiful wife. I overheard one of Pete's friends marveling. What do you know? Another person chimed in, his voice laced with mystery as he raised a finger. Was it $100,000? That's not too much. $100,000, the second man sneered. It's $1 million. I heard the bride even insisted that Pete buy a house in her name. Marcus and I exchanged a glance. A bigger fool had just entered the picture. The engagement party was lively. A video originally showcasing Anna and Pete's love story was interrupted by footage of Anna and me at our wedding. The two weddings merged into one, and chaos immediately erupted in the venue. Anna's family tried to make a quick exit in the confusion, but Pete's sharp-eyed relatives caught them. Pete's mother grabbed Anna by the hair and started slapping her. You bitch! How dare you lie to us? Marcus and I watched the spectacle coldly, waiting for Anna's family to be beaten down before we approached. As Anna was being held down and slapped, she saw Marcus and me, her face froze, and panic was visible in her eyes. Without thinking, she blurted out, George. I curled my lips in a mocking smile. Don't know who Anna's husband is? I said. After all three of her husbands were present. Anna hesitated for a moment, then shockingly crawled toward me, clutching at my sweatpants, repeatedly apologizing. George, I only married you, the other two were forced by my parents. I didn't want to, George. As she said this, she subtly signaled to her parents. Her parents, catching the cue, immediately slapped themselves across the face. It was our fault, not Anna's. If anyone should be blamed, it's us. We forced her. Before I could respond, Pete, who had been basking in the joy of being the groom just moments ago, completely broke down. In a swift move, he stormed over and slapped Anna hard across the face. You bitch. You scammed me. Do you have a conscience? I treated you so well. Anna was knocked to the ground, her face turning sideways, dazed. Taking advantage of her shock, Pete's mother joined the fray, grabbing Anna by the face and slapping her twice. Not one member of Anna's family, her parents or Henry, made any attempt to defend her. They even tried to sneak away in the chaos, but they were caught by the police who had arrived. Anna's entire family was taken to the police station for questioning. At first, I thought it was already outrageous that Anna had married 3 men at once, but it turned out that things were about to get even more explosive. Anna and her parents weren't even biologically related. According to police investigation, Anna's parents died when she was young and she was adopted by Henry's parents. After coming of age, Anna had actually married Henry. Henry's family was poor, and since Henry was lazy and irresponsible, the burden of supporting the family fell on Anna's shoulders. It wasn't until Anna met me, someone who would spend $9 out of $10 for her, that her family's fortunes seemed to open up, as if their entire energy channel had been cleared. Working a job wasn't nearly as fast as scamming men for their money. Aside from me, Marcus, and Pete, Anna had been involved with several other men, but only the 3 of us had fallen into her web. How did we get so stupid? Marcus sighed and shook his head. After being released from the police station, the 3 of us headed to a bar for a drink. Pete took a sip of his drink. You can never go wrong when you give someone your true heart. The guilty ones are the ones who deceive the heart of others. Well said. I raised my glass. Let's drink to that. It's fate that we three met like this. I subtly asked, so why do you think your wife was cheating? That night, the three of us drank ourselves into oblivion, finishing 5 bottles. The friendship of men started over a drink, and to our surprise, the three of us were starting to become friends. After the sentence for Henry's family was handed down, the three of us went together to visit the prison. Anna, dressed in a prison uniform, her hair a mess, looked at us in shock the moment she saw us. Her beautiful face twisted in an instant. Why? We already bought tickets to Manhattan. After the wedding, we could all be together forever. She started crying as she spoke, her eyes filled with resentment as if we were the reason her family couldn't be together. I shook my head. The tickets were bought by Henry, right? Anna paused, then nodded. Yes, he bought them, but there were only 3 tickets. For him and his parents. How is that possible? Anna bit her lip, her tears on the verge of falling. I looked at her, and for a moment, I felt a bit sorry for her. She had given everything for her family, only to be betrayed by them. Henry already confessed. His original plan was for them to leave, leaving the mess for you to clean up. I stared into her eyes. Is he really worth spending your whole life for? I didn't hear her reply, but her sobs spoke volumes. Life is short, but also long. To love others is important, but don't forget to love yourself.